Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Christy, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I know how busy this time of year is for you as educators, so I appreciate you spending some time with us. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes learning about Read Naturally Live. But Read Naturally Live is one of 4 programs that are part of our Read Live platform of interventions. So I'm going to briefly give you a description of exactly what you can find in the Read Live program. Like I said, Read Live is our platform that contains 4 comprehensive research-based interventions, which were all developed by Read Naturally and have been used in thousands of schools. All of the programs allow you to easily differentiate instruction in an RTI or MTSS model and work really well for your students receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. Read Live can be used in the classroom, and it can also be used real easily with remote learning. The Read Live platform contains 4 programs. The one we'll spend most of our time today talking about is, of course, Read Naturally Live. But it's important to also have you understand what else is available in the platform. So you've got access to Word Warm-Ups Live, which is our phonics intervention program. 1 Minute Reader Live, which is our structured independent reading program that offers reading practice for any student. And then Read Naturally Live Espanol, which is the Spanish version of our Read Naturally Live program. More specifically, though, we're going to talk about Read Naturally Live today, and then I'm going to demonstrate for you how to use the program. Read Naturally Live is an intervention that focuses on fluency and phonics. Students also benefit from additional support in vocabulary, spelling, and comprehension. Students that participate in Read Naturally Live get the opportunity to build fluency and motivation by reading short nonfiction passages. They're provided with audio support, which helps them increase their accuracy and their expression. Their comprehension and vocabulary become strengthened as they read and reread stories. They develop automaticity and decoding through targeted lessons in our phonics levels. And while students work independently most of the time, there are a few key teacher touch points in the process where the teachers and students are working together. By working in Read Naturally Live, students experience success and an improved attitude and confidence in their reading abilities. We're going to share today a strategy that helps students improve their fluency, their comprehension, and their vocabulary. But as we talk, we want you to make sure that you keep in mind that there's more to reading development than just fluency. And the strategy that we'll share today is not a total reading program. This strategy should be used as one part of a structured literacy program that also includes grade level instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, and comprehension. But let's talk now more specifically about fluency. We know fluent readers are students who are able to read orally with appropriate speed, accuracy, and proper expression, and that students who struggle with this and with one or more of those areas, we would call them non-fluent readers. The reason we want to focus on fluency for our students is that educators have recognized that fluency is an important aspect of reading, right? But reading researchers also agree. There is over 30 years of research showing that fluency is a critical building block of reading because of its direct correlation to comprehension. And let's talk about that. There are 4 reading measures that you see on your screen, and all of them are related to high levels of reading comprehension. If there was a score of a 0.6 there, that would mean there's a strong correlation between that measure and a student's ability to comprehend. But let's zero in on oral reading fluency. You'll see if we consider 1.0 to be the highest correlation, that oral reading fluency is highly correlated to reading comprehension. The reason for this is because of the automaticity that is involved. When fluent readers are automatic readers, they can then focus their attention. Instead of on decoding the words and trying to read a passage, their attention can then be focused on making meaning of what exactly it is that they're reading. So our students need to become automatic with text so they can pay attention to that meaning. That is all based on the automaticity theory from Dr. S.J. Samuels, who did a lot of research on fluency. We're going to practice this automaticity theory by doing a fun little quick activity. On your screen, you can see lots of words. And to illustrate just how automatic those of us here are today, I'd like you to take, I'm just going to give you about 5 seconds to read these words out loud. Ready? Begin. Okay, you can stop. That was pretty easy, right? I'm going to assume that was easy for you to read because you are already automatic readers. But now let's try something. I'm going to change it up on you. Instead of reading the words, I'd like you to just name the colors of the letters in each of the words. Ready? Begin. And you can stop. So if you're like me, you probably found that task to be a little bit more difficult. It's difficult to name the colors because we are already automatic with reading these words. It's hard to stop reading the words even when we make an effort not to read them. Since we're automatic readers, we put our mental energy into making meaning of what we've read. And that's what we want our students to be, right? We want our students to spend time when they're reading, thinking about the stories, comparing the characters, making predictions, and adjusting those predictions when they're given new information. And so we want to get our students to that level of automaticity so their focus when they're reading can be spent on comprehension. So that non-fluent reader, if I asked you to turn and talk to somebody and tell them what does a non-fluent reader sound like or what are they doing, you'd probably say they're reading slowly. They struggle when they get to a sight word. They, read word by word and ignore punctuation, and they tend to make a lot of errors. And do all students read this way? Absolutely not. But for our students who do, we know that they need an intervention that's going to provide support. Our program Read Naturally Live is a great intervention for them to use to help them become fluent readers. We can identify non-fluent readers simply by listening to them. We have all heard them read, but we can also use some research to make an informed decision as to who might need some support in fluency. So let's talk about how we can identify which of your students need extra help to become automatic readers. The table on your screen is the Hasbrook and Tyndall table that shows the 50th percentile oral reading fluency norms for students in grades 1 through 6. These are the 50th percentile scores at the keep times of fall, winter, spring, when schools are most likely benchmarking their students. If we look specifically at third grade, we see their scores coming in at the 50th percentile. Those kids read about 83 words per minute. But as we go across the row and as we look at all of the other grades, you'll notice everyone's scores go up, of course, and that makes sense to us. But let's talk about what happens after sixth grade. When we look at the older Hasbrook and Tyndall table, I want you to see that the 50th percentile, the score stays right around 150 words per minute. And the reason for this is that that's where fluent readers top out at around 150 to 200 words per minute. That's kind of our ceiling. I used to say to my students, I don't want you to read too slow, but I also don't want you to read too fast. I want you to read just right. And this is that just right level for an automatic fluent reader. So, if we're looking at that third grader coming in at the 50th percentile and comparing them with the proficient reader who comes in at the 75th percentile in third grade, you'll see their scores range from 104 in the fall to 139 in the spring. But look what's happening with that struggling reader, or that kiddo who comes in reading at the 25th percentile. You'll notice their score there is 59 in the fall, and they get to 91 in the spring. Now, while we want to celebrate that because they are making gains, their gains are still significantly behind where their proficient reading peers were at the start of the school year. There is a big gap here, and so we want to figure out a way that we can help those struggling students get caught up. Going back to our table, I want you to think about your students and think about where you are at right now. What's your grade level? What time of year? Of course, we know what time of year it is, right? It's the fall. If you look at this table and you listen to your students read 3 unpracticed grade level passages, you take their average words correct per minute by subtracting out their errors. Any of your students whose score is 10 words or more below this 50th percentile score would likely benefit from a fluency building intervention that also supports their comprehension and their vocabulary. And they also would benefit from probably further diagnosis to determine exactly what their reading issues are and where they're going to need that extra support. So now we know who our students are. We've got them identified, the kids that could use some extra fluency help. And now we need to make a determination about what to do with them. Well, we know students become fluent by reading, but just setting time aside for independent silent reading is not sufficient. There's been data analyzed by the National Reading Panel, and it suggests that just encouraging students to read independently is not an effective way to help them to become more fluent. The reason for this is we all know what happens during independent reading time, right? Your fluent readers they're just flying. They're doing 2,000 words in that 10 minutes that you give them to read, where the struggling reader might be coming in with only 500 words that day. So that equal practice time is not equal practice because by the end of the year, think how many more words your fluent reader is getting exposed to and reading compared to your struggling reader. The National Reading Panel is telling us that a more effective course of action is to explicitly teach your developing readers how to read fluently. And they make three recommendations for what to do. The three research proven strategies are teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring. So let's talk real quick about teacher modeling. This first strategy says that if you provide your students with teacher assisted, peer assisted, or audio assisted reading, and the key there is that it's assisted, so the teacher is modeling it and the student is reading along with them, they're going to make greater gains in their fluency. Now, students who participate in this, or the student who's ready to participate in teacher modeling, is that child who knows about 50 sight words and has a good beginning or good sense of beginning sounds. So, teacher modeling is strategy number one that we know helps students become more fluent. Strategy number two is repeated reading. This has been shown to significantly build reading fluency, and it simply involves students reading the same material multiple times to build accuracy and expression. And finally, progress monitoring. When students are given the opportunity to progress monitor, we know they're going to make greater gains. It's kind of like when you think about a child playing a video game. It's hard to pull them away, and that's because when they're playing a video game, they've been given that specific goal. Maybe it's locate a treasure, beat their best score, make it to a next level of the game. But then as they're working their way through towards that goal, they get that immediate, specific, relevant feedback about their progress so they know where they're going and they know how to get there. Progress monitoring takes advantage of that combination and it motivates students to read. If we can give them a goal, tell them how they're going to get there, tell them how they're going to know if they've met it, and then let them know that they've met it, that motivation keeps them going and keeps them practicing their reading. So let me show you how we've combined these three strategies into one strategy and into our program, Read Naturally Live, okay? The student begins with progress monitoring. They read a story for the first time and they get a cold score. Down on the bottom screen, you see a blue and red graph. Well, that cold score is going to be graphed there for the students, giving them that visual and that immediate feedback. This is where you're at. The student then rolls into our teacher modeling where they read along with an audio recording 2 to 3 times with a narrator and they get that nice practice with what the passage or how the passage should be read. And then they move into that repeated reading step where they repeatedly read to themselves, but they are reading out loud. So there's always going to be a level of noise in your classroom when you're working with Read Naturally Live because those students are whisper reading out loud. And so as the student reaches their goal during that repeated reading time, and the program is giving them that information and that feedback, they're then ready to move on. They answer some comprehension questions about the story, and then the teacher comes in and does what we call a hot read with them. That hot score when they pass the story meeting their not only their reading rate goal, but their reading with accuracy. So they have 3 or fewer errors and they've answered comprehension questions correctly. They pass the story. And then that is graphed for them again to give that visual feedback on how well they're doing. So I'm going to show you all of those things in more detail when we get into our demonstration. But when we combine those 3 strategies, you will see dramatic results for both your developing and your struggling readers. Now, this strategy was birthed out of a study done by Candace Einot, who developed this strategy. She is the founder of our company, and she had a classroom of 3rd grade students that contained both special education and Title I kids. She exposed the special education students to these 3 practices, and they gained an average of 2.35 words per week. When you look back at the Hasbrook and Tyndall tables, kids in 3rd grade are going to make anywhere from zero point 0.8 to 1.2 words per week. So these students were doing almost double that. In phase 2 of the study, the Title I kids that were in the classroom were exposed to that strategy, and you'll see their gains were 2.15 words per week. So getting exposed to that strategy definitely accelerated their fluency. Since that original study, many other studies have been done on Read Naturally, and you can check out our website to find out some more details of what studies have been done and where the evidence is to show that it is an effective intervention for fluency. Now let's dig into here a little bit more specific. Remember, Read Live is the platform. There are 4 programs in it. Specifically, we're going to talk now just about Read Naturally Live. Read Naturally Live focuses on the fluency and the phonics. There's a lot of content in there, and I should revisit that. It also provides support in vocabulary and comprehension and spelling. But there's a lot of content available. So you've got lots of choices. Your students will have lots of choices. We have 3 series, 13 different reading levels. It is appropriate for readers whose skill levels are anywhere from 1st through 8th grade, and for beginning readers all the way through adults. It works ideally with 3 to 5 sessions scheduled per week, and 30 to 45 minutes per session works best. The more obviously that you can do this, the faster the gains are that the students are going to make. Speaking of all that content, you can see all of our reading levels here along with our 3 series. So we've got the Sequence series, the Phonics series, and Idioms series. Our phonics content is broken down for you, and this is all found in your handout so you can look more specifically. And then you can see all of our reading levels. And then at each of those reading levels, you'll see a lot of them have sequenced and phonics available. And then when you get to 3rd grade, you've got all 3 series available, sequence, phonics, and idioms. And then moving down, you've got another couple of levels there that have sequenced and idioms available. The sequenced series is going to be our basic level curriculum. It's appropriate for any developing or struggling reader. It has 24 stories with a level at about almost every half of a year. It also has a Spanish read along for your English learners, and so this is something that they can access to read along in Spanish before they move to practicing it in English. Our Phonics series is available for several of the reading levels. It works with the students whose their reading skills are anywhere from beginning to a 3rd grade reader, and each level features a different set of phonics elements. And finally, our Idiom series. This is a fun series for the students to work in, whether they're native speakers or English learners. They're exposed to those common American idioms as they work on their fluency. In this series, while the other 2 series have 24 stories per level, this one has 12 stories available per level. So we know how to identify our students. We know what options we have available for them. We then need to set up our workspace. This works really well in either a resource room, a classroom station. If you have one-to-one devices, the kids can work on this program right at their desks. You might have a lab set up, or it can even be used in an extended day or a summer school type setting. Ideally, you won't have more than 1 teacher for every 8 students for every teacher. If you're working though in the Phonics series, we would recommend that a 1-to-6 ratio would be a little bit better for those kids. And again, we already talked about scheduling that 3 to 5 days, 30 to 45 minutes per your sessions. Once you've got your space set up, you know who your students are. You're going to go through the steps of placing your students, setting their level, their series, and their goal, training them on how to use the program. This is one of the most important things you will do to start this off. Get your students trained so they know what all of the steps are and they know why they're doing each of the steps. If you empower them with knowing why they're supposed to do it in a certain way and in a certain order, then they're more likely to do that. So training them is key. And we've got a couple of options for training. We've got these wonderful training videos, which I would recommend you lead off your training with that. But if you'd rather do it by following our lesson plan, of course, we provide that for you as well. So we're going to place our students, we're going to train our students, and then they're going to be able to just take off and start working in the program. There's many steps involved in each of the programs. I'm going to go over each one of these with you here today, but this is a this poster, excuse me, this poster is available for you to print off of our website if you'd like to have that available to teach the students how to do that. And you can order even larger size ones as well. So we're going to pop into the demo and I'm going to show you where you can find help as you're beginning to implement this, where those student training videos are, and then we'll pop into the teacher module. I'll show you how to enroll your students, license them, adjust story options to differentiate your instruction. We will place a student and then I'll walk you through one of the stories. So bear with me while I just switch over here to the window. On our Read Naturally website, I would just highly encourage you to bookmark two things. Pop into the search, type in Read Live Help, and you'll find great resources here. Not only video resources that show you how to do all of the important steps and learn how to do all of the steps to get everything set up in Read Live, there are also print versions of all of those directions. And then in our knowledge base, you'll find that Student's Guide to Read Naturally, the video series. Now, this is a 5-part series. And so what works really well is just take 5 days at the beginning of the year when your kids are learning how to use Read Naturally Live and do one video a day and just move from the students complete the video or you do the video together, the students go to their device and do the steps that were taught that day in that video. And then the next day, do the next video. It is the best and easiest and most effective way to train your students on how to use the program. So now let's pop in. I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to log in as a teacher. So when you log in to Read Live, you're going to enter, you'll have an account ID, your user ID, and your password. You will log in as a teacher and I'm going to start to show you now how to enroll a student and how to place a student. So when you get to the main page, you'll click Go to Home Page. And you'll pop up here. I've got lots of tiles available to me. If you just have the teacher access, you might not have as many, but you'll jump into student administration and student setup. And you'll go up here and you will add a student. Okay. I'm going to add a student named Anna. And we'll call her Anna Johnson. Any of the areas on the enrollment screen that have an asterisk are required areas that you need to enter information. Anything that does not have an asterisk is optional. So you'll give her a username, a unique username. You'll give her a unique password, verify that. It's important that every student is provided with a license, otherwise they won't be able to work in the program, and assigned a lead teacher, okay? Now I want you to look here. Here's the 4 areas or the 4 programs that are part of Read Live. Notice she's automatically enrolled in Read Naturally Live and 1 Minute Reader Live. You can also assign Word Warm-Ups Live or Read Naturally Live Espanol if you'd like to. I'm just going to leave it here at Read Naturally Live and 1 Minute Reader Live for now. The reason I would encourage all of you to give your students 1 Minute Reader Live access is that that is an independent program that your kids can work on whenever they're waiting to work with you or whenever they want to do that independent reading practice, okay? They don't need you to do this. So when you're placing students or when they just want to do some independent reading time, 1 Minute Reader Live access is going to give them the ability to do that. So it looks like I've entered all of my information in for Anna. I'm going to save and close. and she has now been added to my list. So now I'm going to jump over here to the student login, and I'm going to log in as Anna. Oops, let me try that again. There we go. So now when Anna logs in, because she has not been placed yet, she'll have this yellow button here that's going to say Conduct Placement. And notice she also has the button to do 1 Minute Reader Live. Anna is going to need the teacher present for conducting that placement. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this, and then our narrator, who we call Captain Next because he tells the students what to do next, is going to tell her what to do.
Before you can begin working, your teacher must assign you a series, level, and goal. Please tell your teacher.
All right, so now the student needs the teacher, and yes, they can raise their hand and let the teacher know, but also notice on the screen the red bar across the top and the bottom. That's going to be a nice visual for the teacher as they're working in the room with all the students to know, looks like Anna needs me. I'm going to make note and I'm going to get over there to support her and help her out as soon as I can. The teacher will come along, they will choose conduct placement, and they will go ahead and log in. Now, if you remember, Anna was a 7th grade student, and we recommend that if you have a student that you're placing, you should probably start about 2 grade levels below the grade that they are enrolled in. So Anna's in 7th grade. I'm going to start her placement at 5th grade. I'm going to choose the 5th grade button. I'm going to click Next, and we get to the timing screen. Now, a couple things I want you to notice. We're going to talk about how come we can't see all of the words there yet, but I'm just going to click timing to get the timer rolling here. So Anna is going to read this story for 1 minute while the teacher, so while you are listening to her and keeping track of how many errors she has made. You're not writing down what the words were, you're just simply counting on your fingers or making some tally marks, just keeping count of how many errors is she reading. You also might be listening for her prosody, how is she using her expression? Is she recognizing the punctuation in the story, all of those things. But she'll just keep reading. Anna will have the option to use this reading guide and keep going down as she's reading aloud to you. Like I said, make sure that she's not seeing you making note of those errors. Instead, it's just a really relaxed opportunity for her to read a story aloud.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
So Captain Next said, click on that last word. So Anna's going to click on, I'm going to say she got to the word as, so she'll click on as. I'm going to let Anna know to enter in the number 8 for the missed words. And again, not making a big deal about that. We're going to click next. Now the program is going to make a recommendation. Anna was placed, we started her placement at level 5.0. She read 85 words in that 1 minute. The placement range for kids that we would place in level 5.0 is actually 60 to 80 words. So you can see Anna is reading above that placement range. So the program is going to make a suggestion. They're going to say, click next to test the student again, and we suggest you move to 5.6. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to choose 5.6, click next. And again, I'm going to hit start timing. Now you'll see those words that were shaded out in the story. That's just to prevent that student from reading ahead when you haven't yet begun the timing or the placement timing that you're going to do. Now again, Anna can use that reading guide as she works her way down, reading the story aloud to you. To place a student is going to take you right around 5 minutes each. So depending on how many kids you have and if you're kind of planning out your placement time and the days that you're going to do that, plan about 5 minutes per student to get the placement completed. Again, you're tracking the number of errors, but not in a way that the student can see. What your other students are likely doing right now is reading in 1 Minute Reader Live, right? It's a great thing for them to do while you're busy doing the placement.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
All right, Anna's going to click on the word only. And this time I'm going to ask her to enter in the number 6. We're going to see what the program recommends. Well, look at that. Placement level testing was 5.6. Anna read 83 words, falls right in the placement range for that level of a story. The program will make a recommendation that you stop testing and you pick a level. Level 5.6 only has one set of stories, one series, so sequenced is what is available. If there was a Phonics series available at this level or the Idioms series, you would have 3 choices to make your decision from. Anna's goal is set at 120 words, and that's because we have added 40 words to her cold reading and then rounded down to the nearest 5. So Anna's going to get placed. There's going to be a window that pops up to confirm that placement. You as the teacher can just go ahead and say, okay.
Please select a story.
And then it just, because we're logged in as Anna, it's just popping right into there and she would be able to start a story. However, she needs to be trained on how to use the program before she starts a story. So this is where you'd say, all right, Anna, I'm gonna have you pop into 1 Minute Reader Live now. And as soon as I get everybody placed, then I'm going to train everybody on how to use the program. So now let's go into a student's folder or to a student's account, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to work through an entire story as a student that has been trained and they've started working in this in their particular level. So we're going to log in to Read Naturally Live again.
Please select a story.
And you can see that this student has completed 2 stories. So there are 12 stories that they are given in their level. They have completed 2 of these stories. There's 10 more here. And then below that, if they continue after those first 12 stories, they can get another set. I'm going to cancel that because we don't want to go there. But there's another set of 12 stories at this level for them to work on. If you ever want to check out where they're at, you can click Level and Goal, and it will tell you this is a student who's in the Sequence series, level 2.5, and that is their goal. So before I get into giving you a demo of the story, I want to briefly show you how you as the teacher can adjust the story options. So I just clicked this little apple up here where it says teacher, and I'm going to log in. And you have over here on the left-hand side, the teacher menu. Any of the stories in the program can be printed off. So if you want your students to read off of a printed copy, you can just go ahead and do that. You can print awards when they've finished levels. You can review their work. You can change their series or their level at any point in time. You can reset stories. You can reset timings. And then you can go in here and change some story options. Every one of these toggle switches can be adjusted to turn on, turn off. You can adjust time on the step for prediction and make it longer or shorter. You might have students that you don't even want to have them spend time writing a prediction because maybe typing on the keyboard is difficult for them, so you can turn that off if you'd like. The cold timing, notice it defaults to the teacher being required for the cold timing. You can turn this off. However, I'd highly recommend that you don't, because if the teacher is present, you'll know that the cold timings are much more accurate, and then you can make instructional decisions as the students are working through the program that will help to accelerate their growth. The read along step, you'll notice I have it set to 0. That is only for purposes of today's demonstration. The read-along step is that teacher modeling. It's important that the students do that, and you can set how many you want your students to read along. Highly recommend at minimum 2 to 3 read-alongs for each student, and you can also adjust the speed of that. If you have a student who would benefit from Spanish read-along, you can toggle that on or off. You can decide if you want them practicing for 1 minute each time, 2 minutes, or completing the whole story for the practice. You can also turn the quiz questions on or off, as well as the retell. In the phonics level, you can adjust how the word list is scored, whether they have to read the whole thing or just read for 1 minute. Turning on and off spelling, You can enable this recording feature, so if you're working on a device other than an iPad, the students can record themselves reading, and then you can go ahead and do their hot read scores at a different time if you're not available for them. And after your students get really good at Read Naturally Live and they don't need Captain Next giving them all of those directions, you can toggle those off as well, and then they'll just get little cues as to where they're supposed to go next. So anyway, all of those are set for me. Teacher options is a great way to make those adjustments to benefit the student that you're working with.
Please select a story.
But then they'll get back to this stop. So I'm going to now select a story and show you what this looks like from
Stingray.
Are you ready to start this story?
You're going to say, yes, I'm ready to start this
Click
story.
each key word to learn the word and what it means.
They'll click each keyword. That's our first step.
Bays. Bays are areas filled with ocean or lake water that have land around all but one of their sides. Bothers. If something bothers you, it makes you feel mad or uncomfortable. The neighbor's dog bothers me. It always barks when I'm trying to read. Shallow. Shallow means not deep. People can walk or sit in shallow water. Unusual. If something is unusual, it is strange or different from what you see most of the time.
Click a word again, or click Next to continue.
I want to draw your attention real quick up here to the progress bar. These are the steps that the students will complete as they are working through a Read Naturally Live story. So we just did the keywords. I liked to tell my students when you're doing the keywords, think about one or two that you might be able to use in your prediction sentence about what this story will be about.
Look at the story title, keywords, and picture. Write a prediction about the story. Then, click Next to continue.
So the students are going to write that prediction. They'll click Next.
Play Wordtastic while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you.
So Wordtastic is a great vocabulary activity that the students can complete while they're waiting for you. Notice the red, that's going to notify, hey, the teacher is needed to help this student out. And when the teacher gets there, they'll just simply click Conduct Cold Timing.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
So the student is now going to do a cold timing, and notice that you are not now, as their teacher, keeping track of errors. You're going to train your students to encourage them to just click on a word that they don't know.
Unusual.
And then that word ends up being read to them. They can either turn on or off the reading guide. Some kids like to use it, some kids don't, but they can decide whether they want that option available to them. Remember to tell the kids it's okay if you click on a word.
Others.
We want you to do that on any word that you stop, stumble, or you were tempted to skip. Instead of doing that, just go ahead and click on it.
Strange.
Any words they click on end up being counted as errors, but again, we're not going to make a big deal out of that. We want them,
Dangerous.
of course, to learn those words.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
So the student will click.
Click Next to continue.
Their cold timing score comes up. Remember, that is the start of our progress monitoring. So we've got a cold timing.
Look at how many words you read correctly per minute. Click Next to continue.
So now they've got their visual for the beginning of that progress monitoring and that motivating step.
Click Start Read Along to read along. Or click Next to continue.
So we've got the start read along. I'm just going to play a little bit of this for you just in the interest of time, but notice these words that are blue. Any of the words that are blue are clickable and a definition, sometimes a picture, sometimes a sentence will come up. But I'm just going to play this, like we'll do the first paragraph to allow you to hear what that narration sounds like.
A stingray is an unusual fish. It has a wide, flat body and a long, thin tail. Its tail can have a sharp spine. Some stingrays are 14 feet long. Others can be as small as your hand.
Click Start Read Along to read along again.
So I stopped that early. Your students, because you will assign them a certain number of read-alongs, they won't be able to do that step. But after they've completed the required number of read-alongs, they'll click Next.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finish.
So this is the repeated reading step. Of course, the students now are going to be practicing the story. Same thing, they're going to be reading aloud. And if they are not reading aloud, just make sure that you gently remind them that you should be hearing them, okay? You can tell them, you can just whisper read, but you need to be reading these words out loud because that's what we're working on. It's oral reading fluency. As they're reading, if they get stuck on that word again, they can, click on it.
Moving.
It's going to read it for them. As they work through that story, practicing whatever the required amount of practices that you've assigned to them. As soon as that minute comes up, they'll hear that ding again, and Captain Next will give them their next directions.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded. You need to practice more to meet your goal. Click Start Timing and continue practicing.
All right, so now that was my error because I didn't click far enough ahead. So you're just going to have to bear with me for this minute. We need to pass this until we can get to the next screen. So we're just going to let it go for another minute while we're at it. You'll find our stories. They're all nonfiction. They're always high interest. The kids just love them. And what we found when I used this program for over 20 years as I worked as a Title I interventionist. And what I found is my students, the ones like, let's say they were doing this story on stingrays, they get so interested in it, they would start researching it outside of their time that they were spending with me learning about it. So it really piques a lot of their interest. In the beginning, when the students get their first set of stories, you'll find that they choose the ones that they like the best, like the topic maybe that they already know something about, or a topic that they're already comfortable with. So
Click on the last word you
let's see,
read
I just
when
need
the
to
bell
go a
sounded.
little bit farther. I'm just going to go here just to play
You've
it
reached
safe.
your goal.
Oops, I really
You've
beat it
finished
there.
all your practices. Click Start Timing, click the best answer, and then click Next.
Okay, so then the students are going to be given 5 quiz questions at this particular level. They are going to get that positive ding, tells them you got them correct. If they get something wrong, they're going to hear this. And then they're going to finish those. They'll answer a short answer question.
Retell or
They'll do that
summarize the story
retell.
in your
All
own
of these things
words.
you'll get to review at the end.
Now you're ready to pass.
The teacher will enter that in and they will do that pass step. So they're going to read it now. And in order to pass a story, they not only need to meet their reading goal, they need to make less than 3 errors, and they need to have an expression rate of 3 or above. And they also need to get all of their comprehension questions done correctly. Now, if they don't meet any of those requirements, there's going to be the option for you as the teacher to just have them go back and either retest if they didn't meet their goal. You can set it up if maybe you're feeling like they need to read along again with the narrator. You can pop them back into that step where they read along and get that extra teacher modeling again. You can have them do more practices. Any of those things that you feel like they need to do in order to meet the expectation for passing the story, you're going to go ahead and set those up. But typically by the time you get here,
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
the students will be ready to pass the story. You're going to enter in the number of words missed. You're going to give them an expression score. There is a rubric available for you to decide what score they're going to get. They will click Next. They get that great visual to say, yes, you really did meet your goal that time. Way to go. The teacher will correct the short answer questions. We'll look at their retelling of the story. And then you get to this reporting page. Now, any of these options here on the reporting page are printable. The things you want to look for are the red X's, because that's going to tell you that you might need to have one of the steps repeated. You'll have this great fluency graph. The kids like to show you that and show you how, look at this, my scores keep going up. For comprehension, you might take a look at this graph and you can see, oh, a couple of struggles there with vocabulary. I might want to keep my eye on that area of reading with that student, just in case they need a little bit extra help. You'll decide if you're going to reset any of the remedial actions. In the interest of time, we're going to pass with the current scores.
Congratulations! You passed this story. Click Done to finish.
The students are rewarded, and then
Please select a story.
they go right back to selecting a new story that they're going to complete. So that was quite a quick explanation of how to use the program with your students, how to get them registered or get them logged in and to assign a level to them, and then exactly the steps that the students go through in order to complete a story. So as we take a look today, we talked specifically about Read Naturally Live, but we also covered, or I gave you a little bit of a background on those other programs that are a part of the Read Live platform. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, either our customer service, or you can reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer those for you. Thank you for joining us today. Please respond to the survey questions that will appear on your screen after our webinar is finished so we can continue to improve the educational experience for all of you and all of our future webinars that we have planned. Thank you for spending your time with us here today. Thank you.